La Liga has entered a new age, and it has two faces, Hansi Flick and Xabi Alonso. Two men, two philosophies, both defined by tactical brilliance, both reshaping Spanish football into a battlefield of ideas. Flick came to Barcelona at a time when the club looked broken, and in just one season he rebuilt it into a monster.
Level that I don't know that we thought they were capable of at the beginning. In fact, I never thought that I would see Barcelona playing at this level so early.
His high-pressing, advanced defensive line, asymmetric 4-2-3-1, and freedom for creative players turned the Blaugrana into the most terrifying machine in Europe. Under Flick, talents like Pedri and Yamal flourished. Forgotten stars like Rafinha, Frankie de Jong and Koundé were reborn, and Lewandowski looked lethal again. The result? A historic domestic treble, La Liga, Copa del Rey and the Spanish Super Cup. The first time Barcelona achieved such dominance in a single season, and the sweetest part was taking it all from the hands of Real Madrid. But Madrid never sleeps. For Florentino Perez, losing everything to Barcelona is simply unacceptable. This is the club that defines itself by control over Spain and Europe. And Perez responded with a statement of intent. He brought back Xabi Alonso, the Basque genius, who took a Leverkusen team fighting relegation and transformed them into unbeaten Bundesliga champions. An innovator who knows Real Madrid's DNA, who understands the demands of the Bernabeu.
Todo el mundo viéndonos que diga, ese es el equipo que me gusta, ese es mi equipo, ese es mi Real Madrid, y si conseguimos encender eso, tendremos una fuerza imparable.
Alonso's football is about living in the opponent's half, generating overloads in every zone, especially the midfield, and always keeping his team on the front foot. Under him, Madrid recovered the identity they had lost last year, because at last there is a true leader on the bench. With Alonso, meritocracy rules. The badge comes first, name second. Mbappe and Arda Güler shine brighter than ever, embodying his ideas while others, like Vinicius, once untouchable, now face the harsh reality of competition. This Madrid is disciplined, ruthless and modern, but it is also deeply connected to its heritage of attacking dominance. Spanish football has not seen this kind of duel since Guardiola versus Mourinho. Now Barcelona and Madrid are not just battling for trophies, but for the very soul of La Liga. Flick versus Alonso is more than a rivalry. It is the collision of two tactical worlds. One builds from vertical aggression, the other from structured superiority. One trusts in freedom and intensity, the other in balance and precision. Together they elevate the Clasico beyond rivalry into a clash that defines a generation. La Liga's new era has a name, Flick versus Alonso, and in this new age, good football always comes first. Hansi Flick is not just another German manager, he is a thinker of the game, a coach who has built his reputation on tactical clarity and the ability to adapt his ideas to different squads and context, and his rise from an assistant on the international stage to one of the most respected head coaches in Europe reflects a philosophy that blends the best of traditional German football with his own bold innovations, making his teams modern, ruthless, and incredibly difficult to break down. At the core of Flick's identity is the pressing game, and not just any pressing, but the aggressive, suffocating version of it known as gegenpressing, a style he absorbed during his years as assistant to Joachim Löw with Germany, where the objective is simple yet demanding. The instant you lose the ball, you hunt it back, you compress space, and you suffocate the opposition until they crack, forcing errors and breaking down their rhythm before it even begins, which is why players under Flick must live in a constant state of intensity, always alert, always ready to collapse on the ball as a unit. But Flick's philosophy is not only about chasing, it is about positioning, about using the pitch like a chessboard, where every player's spot creates passing lanes, triangles and safety nets, so that even under pressure there is always a controlled outlet, always a way to maintain possession while stretching the opponent. And this positional game is the backbone of his tactical structure, giving his teams the ability to dictate tempo while remaining fluid enough to adapt when situations demand flexibility. The other striking element in Flick's football is how direct and explosive his transitions are, because while many possession coaches slow the tempo to suffocate the opponent, Flick has never been afraid to go straight through the heart of a team, demanding vertical passing patterns that move the ball from defence to attack in seconds, often using width to stretch the backline and then exploiting the gaps inside with pace and precision. A blueprint that became terrifyingly efficient during his Bayern years when counterattacks turned into weapons of mass destruction.
The ball is loose.
And then there is his obsession with the wings, because Flick knows that in the modern game the flanks are both the entry point and the exit strategy. So his fullbacks are not just defenders, they are engines, constantly overlapping, underlapping, or stretching the pitch, giving his wide players the support to either cut inside or deliver, creating overloads that destabilise opponents and open corridors of space for midfielders and forwards to exploit, which is why under Flick, the role of the fullback is as vital as the role of the striker. When Hansi Flick took charge of Bayern Munich, he did not simply steady the ship, he transformed it into a machine of relentless rhythm and intensity, building a side that pressed, attacked, and dominated with such synchronicity that opponents often looked overwhelmed within minutes. And the hallmark of his reign was what many called the Bayern Gegenpress, a version of counter-pressing so aggressive that rivals were suffocated in their own half, unable to breathe, unable to reset. And this identity became the foundation of Bayern's extraordinary run that culminated in the Champions League title of 2020. Structurally, Flick built his empire on the 4-2-3-1, a shape that offered both security and explosiveness, with Joshua Kimmich and Leon Goretzka forming the engine room, a double pivot that could shield, recycle and burst forward in equal measure, while ahead of them, a devastating quartet of Serge Gnabry, Thomas Müller, Kingsley Coman and Robert Lewandowski formed an attacking front that had everything: speed on the wings, creativity between the lines, and perhaps the most clinical striker of his generation at the tip. The positional play was refined yet fearless, with Flick using his fullbacks not just as defenders but as high-powered weapons. Alphonso Davies bombing down the left like a sprinter who could turn defence into attack in a single run, and Kimmich on the right offering balance, intelligence and delivery, both of them dovetailing with wingers to stretch the pitch, while Müller ghosted into spaces no one else could see, and Lewandowski punished every loose ball with lethal precision. What makes Flick's Bayern era almost mythical is not only the silverware, but the way it was achieved, because in just 9 months he lifted 7 trophies, sweeping the Bundesliga, the DFB Pokal, the Champions League, the UEFA Super Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup and the German Super Cup, sealing a historic sextuple that had only ever been achieved before by Pep Guardiola's Barcelona in 2009, and Bayern did it in style, becoming the first side in Champions League history to win the tournament with a perfect record of victories. The numbers themselves tell the story of domination, but woven with narrative they feel even heavier. 23 straight wins between February and September 2020, the longest winning streak in German professional football, an overall win rate of 83% across 86 matches, a figure unmatched in the modern game, with just 7 defeats and 5 draws in that entire spell, meaning Flick's Bayern did not just win, they conquered with consistency and ruthlessness that left an imprint on European football. Despite his failure with the German national team, what Flick achieved with Bayern Munich, including that ruthless humiliation of Barcelona in the Champions League, was enough to convince the Barca board that his tactical philosophy, strict discipline and ability to transform squads were exactly what the club needed. Under Xavi, Barcelona had collapsed into 3 fatal problems. They were ultra-predictable. They lived in a culture of excuses, blaming the sun, the grass, or anything but themselves, and their stars were misfiring.
Molesta el sol, sí. El sol nos molesta. El campo seco no nos beneficia.
Lewandowski was forced to operate far from the box. Rafinha was losing possession too often. Pedri was constantly injured, and the solutions brought in at the time, Joao Felix and Joao Cancelo, simply failed to reach the level required. So the club pulled the trigger and made a brutal shift in direction. The foundation was always clear: pressure, possession, and position. These 3 Ps are the essence of the Barca style, the philosophy installed by Johan Cruyff between 1988 and 1996, a DNA that has lived on as the ideological compass of the club. That philosophy shaped their choice of coaches for decades. Pep Guardiola, Luis Enrique, and Ronald Koeman all absorbed Cruyff's teachings directly as players. Xavi Hernandez carried them as a footballer and later tried to transmit them as a coach. Tito Villanova grew under the same framework, and when the club could not find the right option at home, they turned to outsiders who could at least embody those 3 Ps: Frank Rijkaard, Gerardo Martino, and Ernesto Valverde. Hansi Flick falls into this latter category, but with a twist. He is an outsider who not only respected Barca's identity, but reshaped it into something sharper, something scarier. Flick managed to blend the Catalan DNA with his own trademarks. He trusted the young talents. He reinforced positional play and ball circulation. He built control through midfield. But he added defensive personality with his daring high line and offside trap. He implemented an asymmetric 4-2-3-1, escalonamientos in build-up to create overloads, verticality to shock defences, and a suffocating high press to dictate rhythm. Most importantly, he changed the mentality. Flick restored confidence in the pillars of the team, gave each player a personalised treatment to extract their best version, and established a culture of zero excuses.
Me cambió prácticamente todo. Como he dicho en otras ocasiones en entrevistas que me iba del club antes de empezar la temporada, y el míster fue súper importante para mi cambio de.
The results were extraordinary. Barcelona went from being predictable and fragile to becoming a machine that smashed records, restored identity, and turned their key players into the best versions of themselves. And this, believe it or not, was only the beginning. When Hansi Flick arrived at Barcelona, the transformation was brutal. The Blaugranas went from a team that had just scraped together a meaningless nada pleat to winning the domestic treble, from watching Real Madrid dominate from a distance to beating them in all 4 Clásicos of the season. And beyond the trophies, the numbers tell the story of a side that has been rebuilt into a machine. Barca recorded 44 wins in a single campaign, more than any other team across Europe's top 5 leagues, and scored 174 goals, leaving PSG's 147 far behind. Flick's Barca became the 3rd most prolific side in the history of European football, a figure that speaks to both ruthlessness and consistency. The data confirms it. 414 shots on target, a possession average of 66.5%, a passing accuracy of 88.4%, and over 50% success in dribbles. They even scored 19 goals from sequences of more than 10 passes, proving their positional play is alive and sharp. And defensively, they topped Europe with 608 recoveries in the final third, a byproduct of Flick's relentless high press. At the back, they kept 21 clean sheets thanks to the combined efforts of Ter Stegen, Iñaki Peña, and Szczęsny, showing that the defensive work begins as much in the opponent's half as in their own penalty area. But perhaps the most telling sign of Flick's impact was the team's resilience. This Barca refused to give up, no matter the situation. They completed 9 comebacks in one season, including 2 in finals against Real Madrid in the Supercopa and Copa del Rey +6 in La Liga. That mentality, that refusal to surrender, is now part of the team's DNA. Much of it comes down to Flick's ability to give each player clarity, confidence, and responsibility. Robert Lewandowski, supposedly finished, silenced everyone with 44 goals last season and has already started scoring again this year. Rafinha, once inconsistent, became the heartbeat of the attack. 4,661 minutes played, 34 goals, 25 assists. And this season already 3 goals and 2 assists. Lamine Yamal, disciplined tactically to stay wide, turned into the most devastating player in Europe, the best creator in the world with 22 assists and unstoppable in one-on-ones. In midfield, Pedri and Frenkie de Jong became Europe's most dominant double pivot, controlling tempo with pass completion near 90% while dismantling rival game plans with ease. Pau Cubarsí matured from a 17-year-old prospect into a defensive leader, while Koundé and Balde became lethal engines on the flanks. The depth is equally impressive. Ferran Torres has started the new season competing with Mbappé in the scoring charts. Already on 4 goals, Fermín López plays with an Iniesta-like heart, providing energy and creativity as the perfect link. And Flick has even rescued Marcus Rashford from Manchester United's talent graveyard. 2 goals and 2 assists in his last 3 games show the Englishman is finding life again. Between them, this squad now has balance, youth, experience, and above all, belief. In short, Flick has built a Barcelona with a reliable goalkeeper, a defensive unit mixing youth and experience, the strongest midfield in the world, and an attack with the best player on the planet, one of the most lethal strikers, and the best Brazilian in the league. With the double pivot, high press, vertical transitions, and ruthless ball circulation, no team in Europe can feel safe when facing them. And all of this is aimed at one ultimate goal: to stand tall against Xabi Alonso's Real Madrid, who themselves are no less formidable. Now we need to turn our eyes to Real Madrid under Xabi Alonso, because what the Basque coach has built is nothing short of spectacular. The Merengues have on their bench a manager who looks destined to become one of the defining geniuses of modern football, a man Jose Mourinho once described as the perfect blend of philosophies from the greatest tacticians of our era.
On the pitch, and his knowledge of the game very high. He played in Spain, in England, and in Germany, and he was coached by Guardiola in Bayern, by myself in Real Madrid, by Ancelotti in Real Madrid, by Benitez in Liverpool. So I think if you put all this together, I think Xabi has conditions to be a very good coach.
For Madrid, this is not just another appointment, it is the arrival of a football mind with the aura of inevitability. When Alonso took charge, Madrid, much like Barcelona, had lost a sense of identity. Their issues, however, were different. This is a club addicted to assembling squads of Galacticos, and last season followed the script with the arrival of Kylian Mbappe. On paper they were untouchable, a team already boasting 15 Champions League titles, bolstered by the most marketable superstar on the planet. But reality proved harsher. Apart from a single win against Manchester City, Madrid could not impose themselves against Europe's heavyweights. They ended the campaign with only a UEFA Super Cup and the Intercontinental Cup. For any other club, that would have been success. For Madrid, it felt like failure. Alonso brings more than tactics, he brings lived knowledge of Europe's elite football cultures. As a player, he touched 3 of the continent's most powerful leagues. He debuted with Real Sociedad, became an icon at Liverpool, lifted silverware in 5 seasons at Real Madrid, and closed his career at Bayern Munich. Everywhere he went, he absorbed philosophies, methods, and identities, piecing together a football education richer than most managers could dream of. When he retired in 2017, Alonso wasted no time, securing his UEFA Pro license and starting with Madrid's youth academy, shaping the talents of La Fabrica. His first major challenge came in Germany, when Bayer Leverkusen called in 2022. The club was drowning, sitting 17th in the Bundesliga after 8 games, and Alonso stepped into what many saw as a suicide mission. Instead, he sparked a revolution. By the end of that season, Leverkusen had climbed to 6th, and within a year they had achieved the impossible, their first ever Bundesliga title. And not just that, but an unbeaten season, the first in German football history. They added the DFB Pokal and the 2024 Super Cup, tearing down Bayern Munich's decade-long dominance and rewriting the map of German football. Xabi Alonso's Real Madrid is built on a philosophy that combines positional play with relentless high pressing, a tactical structure that often shifts into a 3 centre-back system to guarantee defensive solidity while enabling fluid movement in attack. His side looks to build out cleanly from the back, progress through the middle with well-rehearsed automatisms, and involve wing-backs actively in the attacking phase. The result is a team that seeks to dominate every game, not just with talent, but with collective organisation, intensity, and adaptability to every phase of play. The first and perhaps most important change was not on the pitch, but in the dressing room. Under Alonso, there is no doubt who is in charge. For the first time in years, Madrid's leader does not wear the shirt, he wears the suit. From that foundation of authority, Alonso has shaped a team that is both more structured and more ambitious, solving the flaws that haunted Carlo Ancelotti's final campaigns. Defensively, the transformation is radical. Under Ancelotti, Madrid often sat deeper when possession was lost, retreating to limit danger. But that reactive approach exposed their broken midfield and created space for rivals to counter. Alonso has flipped the script. His Madrid push higher, pinning opponents inside their own box, and when the ball is lost, they swarm with immediate pressure. Rivals are forced into long passes, and if they do win a duel, they are still 50 metres away from troubling Thibaut Courtois. This shift has dramatically reduced the workload of the goalkeeper and has turned defence into the first step of attack. Of course, such tactical ambition required personnel changes, and Alonso acted decisively in the market. Dean Huijsen has brought presence and security at the back, even if his impetuous style has already led to a collection of red cards. Trent Alexander-Arnold arrived to give Madrid a new creative outlet from deep, though his adaptation has been slowed by injury. And Alvaro Carreras, perhaps the signing of the season in La Liga, has exploded down the flank, producing interventions that have literally saved points. Together they closed the leaks in a defence that last year looked fragile. In midfield, Alonso pushed the revolution further. He placed trust in Franco Mastantuono, a teenager who under Ancelotti would have been condemned to the bench. Mastantuono has responded with explosive creativity, gliding across zones, assisting, scoring, and marking his debut with a goal against Levante. Most importantly, Alonso has unlocked the full potential of Arda Güler. Once a marginal figure, the Turkish wonder kid is now at the heart of the project, dictating tempo, ranking among LaLiga's leaders for touches and key passes, and forming a devastating partnership with Kylian Mbappe. The chemistry between the two is magnetic, every movement synchronized, every pass a threat. Many in Spain are already calling it the modern echo of the Ronaldo-Ozil connection. The emphasis on youth is unmistakable. Carreras, Huijsen, Gonzalo Garcia, Mastantuono, Fran Garcia, Güler all trusted, all thriving. Like Hansi Flick at Barca, Alonso has turned the courage to back young players into a competitive advantage. And he has revived heavyweights too. Eder Militao has returned stronger than ever. Aurelien Tchouameni now dominates midfield with authority, and both have become indispensable pillars. But the crown jewel of Alonso's Madrid is Kylian Mbappe. For years, critics accused him of playing for himself, of chasing the spotlight more than collective glory. Under Alonso, all of that noise has faded. Mbappe looks fitter, sharper, and more committed than ever, a player reborn into the purest version of himself. He leads La Liga's scoring charts, but the scary part of this story is that Mbappe has the best goal average of his career. But beyond numbers, he radiates influence as the undisputed leader of the team. Even with challenging personalities like Vinicius, Alonso has imposed discipline, rotation, accountability, no untouchables. And when Vinicius bristled at his reduced minutes, his answer was simple: perform. The Brazilian responded with a goal against Levante. A small but clear example of how Alonso's culture enforces meritocracy. This Madrid is already good enough to lead La Liga, but what truly terrifies Europe is the margin of improvement. Alonso has only just taken the reins, yet he has transformed a side without direction into a machine that combines youth, experience, tactical discipline, and the explosive brilliance of the best player in the world. If this is only the beginning, the ceiling is frightening. Both managers now hold in their hands two of the most powerful squads in world football, packed with extraordinary talents that define an era. It is Lamine Yamal against Kylian Mbappe, Robert Lewandowski against Vinicius Jr., Arda Güler against Pedri, and Franco Mastantuono against Fermin Lopez. Jude Bellingham faces Frenkie de Jong, each duel a clash of brilliance, youth, and experience. On the touchline, it is Hansi Flick against Xabi Alonso, two masterminds shaping their sides into ruthless machines. This is not just a rivalry for Spain, this is the dawn of a new era of European football kings.